Hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm absolutely wonderful. I'm so excited for this conversation. How many times you been to New York?
I think this is my 5th time.
Your 5th time?
Yeah.
Was it as hot then as it is today?
For some reason, I typically go like in August, and I do not know how you all do it. It is ridiculous.
It has been pretty rough around these parts. Yes,
yeah.
It is hot as the devil's toenails.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Now, this is your first book, correct?
It is.
Let's give that a round of applause. I think that is so exciting. So before we even get to the content, I want to know what the process was like. How long did it take you to write it?
You know, it's not that hard to write a book.
Oh, okay.
Actually, yeah, it turns out.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I got started as Therapy Jeff on TikTok when I was messing around in like September 2021. And then I started going a little viral, and there was a bunch of literary agents that started to reach out being like, you got a book in you. You can do this. And I was like, I don't think I do. And I was just like having fun. I'm not here to like try to turn it into anything. I got pestered just enough to start thinking about like maybe actually I can do this. And the first sort of like grandiose thought that I had was like, it's time for my memoir. Like, you all need to know exactly what went on in my life. And so I started to think about, like, how can I write this memoir? How can I make it sort of, like, self-helpy? The problem with a memoir, I feel like, is there's just, like, so much digging that you have to do into your entire life. Cool. And I've been in therapy for 25 years. It's a green flag.
We love that.
Yeah. But I'm still, like, excavating all of the relationships that I have in my family. I didn't feel like doing that again in book form. So I was like, I'm just going to give the people what they want and make my TikToks a lot longer. And then the book happened.
Nice. So with the TikToks, at what point did you feel like, oh, I've got something here?
Well, so I know that there's a bunch of like Therapy Jeff stands here, but I'm not sure that like anybody has actually seen the first 3 TikToks I did.
Okay.
They were very cringy, and it was me like being a therapist playing a client. It was like me doing little skits. Nobody liked it. And then the 4th TikTok, I was like, you know what? These are here's 5 questions that you should ask your therapist the next time you see them. And that went viral. And I was like, okay, I think there's something here. This was also like during the time where everyone was self-diagnosing on TikTok.
Yes.
And so I just sort of like slid into that energy.
Well, I mean, to be fair, those were some tough years.
Those were some very tough
We're
years.
still in those tough years.
Exactly.
You know, so I definitely understand that connection. And I think that's amazing that you were, because like you're saying, the self-diagnosing. I think the problem with that is when you have so many resources on social media, I think what is hard is that you take a lot of advice from people that necessarily aren't qualified. But the thing is, you got a degree. So that's a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to the TikToks that you make, and especially when it came to writing the book, what did you see the difference as far as like, do you write a script or are you just talking the way that you like? Are you making a beat sheet? And how is that different from writing for like a 60-second video versus having to write a full book?
Yeah, it's very different. The 60 seconds, so like typically throughout the day, I'm constantly thinking of ideas for videos. And it's something that I just sort of like can't shut off. I wish I could. So every now and then throughout the day, I'm putting things into my notes app. And then I wake up in the morning and I look at all those notes and I start forming like 2 or 3 scripts for videos.
Okay.
And then I take those scripts and I put them on a teleprompter and I start like talking into the camera, reading the teleprompter. The trick is to make it seem like there is no teleprompter, right? I'm just sort of naturally amazingly smart. But it's taken a lot of work. So then I edit it and then I put it out there. And that takes maybe a few hours every day. But taking like a 60-second TikTok and then turning it into a full book was a much different process. However, I do have a co-author.
Yes.
And she happened to be my ex-wife, and she has written 4 novels.
Okay.
Yeah. So I eventually tapped her. I was like, I only know how to write TikToks. Can you help me write a full book? And she's like, let's do this.
When did she become your ex-wife?
She became my ex-wife in 2019.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, so y'all done buried that.
Pre-pandemic, we
Okay.
separated. Yeah, we were
Okay.
together. We were married for like 7 or 8 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
but because you are so good with, relationships, y'all were able to have a friendship still.
Yeah, that was like one of the interesting parts. Well, so like I get in touch with, or I choose an agent. We start writing a book proposal.
Okay.
And part of that book proposal is like, I'm writing this with my ex-wife. Isn't this fun? Isn't this interesting? And here's like an example of having a good relationship with somebody after a marriage. There was a lot of like feedback about like, how are you going to call yourself an expert if you've gone through a divorce? I'm like, it's not a failure.
Right.
It's just we went like on different paths. And we look back on that relationship as a real success that we both treasure. And there was, a really good friendship that was created. And we've been writing partners ever since we started dating many years ago. So it just made sense.
That's beautiful. I
Isn't
think
it?
that's very mature as well. I don't
I'm
know if
very
I would call
mature.
anybody from my past to write a book. No. So as you wrote the book with your ex-wife, what did you find new? Or like, as you were writing it, were you like, oh, we went through that, or we experienced that? Do you remember that? And also, in that, because I have read a lot of the book, as you're unpacking these things, was there any moment of being like, should we try this again?
No.
Oh, okay. It's good you know.
Yeah, not at all. We had like a really good sort of, beat down where I would write a whole chapter, I would send it to her, and she would sort of punch it up.
Okay.
And then we'd go back and forth on like editing the chapter, and then we'd move on to the next, into the next. And I feel like, when you're married and there's so many, or when you're in relationship, there's like so many triggers, there's like stuff boiling under the surface. You can like easily kind of like trip over an invisible landmine, and all of a sudden a fight erupts. Me and Kate are just buds now, and we don't have like all of the stuff under there anymore that's like tripping us up. It was harder to be writing partners when we were married compared to like being divorced and just being friends.
Got it.
She pokes and prods me a little bit in the book, which I allow, and it shows like the cute banter that we still have.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. So grown up.
After the divorce, and you're writing partners, and you're still experiencing that, when did you decide that you were ready to get back into the dating game?
Oh God, yeah. So this was pre-therapy, Jeff. Although I've been a therapist for 20 years or so. After the divorce, I too quickly entered the dating pool, as we do, and it's okay. Sometimes we don't make the best decisions ever. But I like quickly went back into the dating pool, like I'm ready to do this, which I think is like a really common decision / mistake sometimes we make after a really long relationship. You're just like, I've pre-grieved this. Right? Like, me and Kate understood that the relationship was starting to come to an end. We did what we could do, and then we eventually get separated and we get divorced. And then you like hit the dating field pool, and you're just like, whoa, I'm not ready, actually. So I like was out there dating for a few months. It felt like chaotic. It felt like I was coming from this like desperate place of just like wanting connection. And there's this thing that happens where a lot of times when you're in a relationship and it ends and you tell yourself that you were grieving it while you were in it anyways, that is such a lie. Like, you can't really grieve a relationship until you're out of the relationship.
Correct.
So I spent some time grieving after the chaotic dating period that I had, and then like sort of like more deliberately, intentionally got back in there.
Wow. Do you feel like you are good at taking your own advice?
Have you heard of the, how they say that like therapists are the craziest ones out there? That's not true. Yeah. So like I'm good at giving dating advice, and I'm
Yes.
like not horrible at taking it myself.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's a learning
But
process for you too.
It's a process, but I think that I've like taken it the best after I've like become therapy, Jeff, because I was like, ugh, I'm a public figure. Like, I really need to be like as congruent with my advice as I possibly can. So
Okay.
it's helped. It's
Well,
helped.
let's test that. So you enter back into the dating pool. Now we're getting into the book, right? How did you go about it? Were you on the apps? Like, what was the process?
Yeah, I was on the apps. The problem that I had with the apps personally
Okay.
was that there was like before, I was like Therapy Jeff. I wasn't on the apps yet. And then eventually when I decided to get onto it, there happened to be a lot of fake Therapy Jeff dating profiles, so people impersonating me. And so I would make a profile as Jeff, and my profile would get reported over and over and over again as this is like a fake dating profile and it's spam. So Hinge and Bumble kept on like taking me off of the dating app. So I know somebody that works at Hinge, Logan, who also wrote a book, and I was like, I'm a real person. Can you tell Hinge to stop deleting my dating profile? And she did it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So it was successful. Yeah.
Okay. So because in the book you say that dating apps are the devil.
They're the worst.
Yes.
Yeah, they're the worst.
So did you believe that then, or like is that a new revelation?
I mean, it was. I had to like have the experience.
Okay.
Of like why, because when I was married, I wasn't on the dating apps.
Correct.
And then after that ended, and I got on the dating apps. The dating apps were like already rolling, and so then I got to find out that like, oh, there's like it's just a bunch of tech bros trying to take my money. There's an algorithm here that's like the same as like a social media algorithm. There's like a dopamine hit that I'm trying to get. Like there's a part of me that's here for the validation.
Yes.
And I don't like how there's like a paywall that I have to pay extra money to get like these extra good matches.
Do you pay?
I don't think that the app is any good unless you pay.
I pay.
I pay.
I like to see the likes before.
I like to see the likes too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't. First of all, I don't have time to do all that swiping.
No.
I like to see, and I'm
Right.
like, yeah, it ain't working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't feel good about paying. That doesn't make me feel good about what I'm doing. So there's like, so that doesn't. It just doesn't really like fit with my values.
Got it.
Although like I guess like I'm an elder millennial. All the millennials, like the dating apps were made for a millennial, where it's just like, oh, okay, like if we want to go get a date, we'll click this app, and then we'll go ahead and start swiping and talking to people. And now it's like starting to change with the younger generation, where they're still meeting people online, but they're meeting people in like different online spaces.
Okay.
Like on Reddit or Fortnite or
Reddit?
whatever.
Really? Fortnite?
Yeah. Have you started dating anybody
no.
on Fortnite?
How do you do that from Fortnite?
I have no idea.
Aren't you just like talking through a mic? Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But you make connections and you go through battles together. It's a real connecting process.
Cute.
Yeah.
Very Renaissance fair. Okay.
It is, and then you start dating somebody virtually who lives across the country, whatever. It's a whole thing. Yeah.
I love that for them.
Do
I
you?
love
Yeah,
that. How many people out here on the dating apps? By raise of hands. Show me. Okay. All right. We got a couple people. So you said you were on Hinge and Bumble.
I am no longer on Hinge and
Well,
Bumble.
we know that. Baby.
Okay.
So, but why specifically those?
Oh, because Hinge felt like it was like the relationship app.
Okay.
Like I'm looking for something kind of serious.
Got it.
But open to a hookup. And,
Really?
And Bumble was like, oh, this feels like, this is for feminists, and like I like the vibe.
Okay.
Yeah. So like both of them sort of, worked okay for me. But
Why
still
not Tinder?
I don't know. It felt chaotic.
Interesting.
How does Tinder feel to you?
Well, something that came to my attention recently about Tinder is that straight people use it to hook up. I did not know that. That doesn't exist in my world. No. It is. We take it very seriously. Like it's a dating app, right?
Right.
So I found that to be interesting. Well, maybe that's because the gays got their own hookup apps, So it's like we got a little bit more resources to turn to.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is when I was growing up, I remember if you were like online dating, like that was crazy. Like people acted like that was insane.
It was.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember when like it wasn't dating apps before, right? It was like
eHarmony
websites.
and
eHarmony
Match.com.
and Match and OkCupid was like very...
Was Christian Mingle out yet?
Christian Mingle, I don't know if it came out yet. Christian Mingle feels like eHarmony. They have the sort of like same vibe. Like eHarmony is like, are we religious? Are we a cult? It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Sign up anyway.
Correct. Correct.
Of,
Very sister wives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
How many of y'all on Christian Mingle? I feel the energy.
And I remember like getting on them, you felt ashamed. Although before I was on Match or tried out OkCupid. I think OkCupid was like one of the first I tried out. But I lived in I grew up in Santa Monica, California,
Okay.
and then I moved to Portland, Oregon in 2005. And I was like, I want to set myself up so that I like start dating right when I moved to Portland.
Okay.
And this is like a little cringe and sort of embarrassing, but like what felt like the best thing to do was to make a personal ad on Craigslist. Do you remember this? Did anyone else do this? Thank you.
Okay.
It was a thing. It was a thing. That's how I met my first girlfriend when I moved to Portland, Oregon.
How did that go?
You know, it was very Craigslist-y. Yeah, it worked okay. It was, but it was like clunky and weird. But I remember, but that was like it was like maybe a little bit before Craigslist felt like sketchy, and it felt kind of like on trend and breaking down barriers and everything. So I started on Craigslist, I went to Match, I spent a long time on OkCupid.
Okay.
And then eventually landed up on Hinge and Bumble, and those are the ones I've used.
How did you meet your current girlfriend?
She's so much better at telling this story. I can't see her. I would bring her up on stage if I could. But she, about 3 years ago, I made a video about like, here's like the top 5 things about dating a therapist or something. It was like I'm a funny guy. I make funny videos. And so it was like, you'll always be listened to. It's going to be the best relationship in your life, yada, yada, yada. She made a comment and she was like, you single? And that was a comment that many people made because it looked like I was like, hey, I'm available. I was not. I was dating somebody. And the person I was, Stacy, I was dating Stacy, and Stacy was like, what is going on here in your comment section? I was like, I don't know what I did. I'm so sorry. But I told her, Amy, that made the comment, I was like, actually, I'm taken. I'm sorry. Fast forward a year and a half later, she slides into my DMs and she's like, I think maybe you're not in that relationship anymore. And
persistence.
And she's like, are you open to flirting?
Okay.
And I was like, I'm not in that relationship anymore, but I'm in a new relationship.
You don't waste no time.
No, and I was like, I can't do flirting with you right now. But we followed each other and I got to know her Instagram. And then my relationship with that girlfriend ends. A week later, Amy has decided to visit Portland, Oregon. She lived over here on the East Coast. And while she was in Portland, she was posting to her Instagram. I was like, I think she's in Portland. So I messaged her. I was like, you in Portland? She was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm single.
Was she there just to be there, or was she there to see you?
She did not reach out to me.
Okay.
But when I said I can't do any flirts, she was like, cool, I'm not gonna do this anymore, right?
Okay.
So I was like, hey, I'm single. She was like, and I was like, you want to hang out? She said, yeah. And so then we hung out. And then I flew her back out 6 weeks later. We let's spend a weekend together.
I know that's right.
Eventually, a couple months after that, moved out to Portland. We've been dating since November.
All right, so you buying flights, baby. I know that's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. Economy or first class?
Economy plus.
Okay. Well, it's first class now. We got a book, baby.
Yeah.
Okay. Love that. Okay, so Portland, right? And we're talking about dating, because I think also dating varies geographically, correct? Do you believe that?
I would imagine it does.
Okay.
What is the dating scene in New York?
Okay, but see, that's what I was going to get to.
Okay.
So, I grew up in Kansas City, right? I ain't date. And then I lived in L.A. Dating in L.A. is atrocious. So when I decided to move to New York, I watched Sex and the City for the first time. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so that's what the life that I thought I was going to live here. To be fair, there are a lot of layers when it comes to my own life, what I do, my work, that gets into that, and the intersection of all those things as well come into play. But I have a lot of friends that go on a lot of dates on a regular basis. And I think what is interesting is I feel as though now people are starting to become a little bit more open to dating, but also taking it beyond the apps. Do you feel is that this is true?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
they're taking it beyond the apps because I think we're also like, fuck the apps. We don't want them to like make so much money off of our horny genitals, right? And there's got to be a better way because this doesn't seem like it's working out the way that we want it to. So there's like, you know, they say like the new dating app is like the rock climbing gym or the run club, which is just sort of like, you know, meeting people IRL. And that's coming back. It feels very retro. And people in the book will help you meet people in real life. But I think that is definitely on trend now.
Yeah, I recently just started like actually actively.
Do you
trying.
approach people like at a bar
No.
or at no? Why not?
I don't have a real answer to that.
That's
Let
what
me
we
think
used
about
to
that.
do.
Well, yes, that is true.
Yeah.
So I am on the apps, right?
Okay.
Now I just started dating probably 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
I got I had like 4 suitors, y'all. Don't tell nobody that. I had like 4 suitors, but I think I done narrowed it down to 1, right? I am a person that cares more about energy, you know? I am very protective of my peace. So I'm like, if you aren't adding anything to my life, I am not willing to sacrifice my peace just to say I got somebody to hold me at night. I'm just not going to do that. You know what I mean? And so with your book, the first chapter is about how it's your parents' fault.
I stand behind that.
And I believe that.
Yeah.
But what I appreciated about that in the book is that it wasn't just like you were able to give context and also explanations of why your dating life may not be connecting. You know, I think it's very easy for somebody to be like, you know, well, I don't like the way this person chews chips or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which to me, that's silly.
Yeah.
So, but the fact that I was able to look at my life growing up. So I've been, you know, practically by myself my entire life. I've never had a boyfriend. You know, I've always been single as a Pringle. And what I realized growing up was that my mother, after my mother and my father got divorced when I was 2, and she never really dated anyone after that. She was very much like, I'm a strong woman, I can do this by myself, and I'm going to. So I never knew any different, right? But the thing that has changed recently is that now she is in a relationship, and now I'm gone, right? But what was exciting for me, and I think because I think I'm also a very rigid person. I'm very guarded. I am very strong. I am very like, it's just me against the world. Watching how soft it made her and how it changed her.
Like in a good way, in a more like
Yes.
emotionally
Yes.
open, available.
Yes.
Yeah.
The safety that it provided to her to where she didn't feel like she had to fight the world anymore. And being able to watch that from a son point of view, I was like, wow, I want to feel that.
Yeah.
And I think that then opened me up to the possibility of being able to find that for myself. But I think something that I am glad, and that's why I'm talking about like the therapy of it all, what I was able to unlock about myself was being able to get to the root of that being rooted with my mother in our relationship.
Right.
Was the fact that then I was able to understand that for a long time, when my mother was very tough, I was choosing suitors that reminded me of the trauma of her. And I realized that I needed to break that cycle and start looking for the light in people. And I think that's very powerful in this book.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel like when I wrote that first chapter, it's your parents' fault. That was the first chapter that I started on, and I kept on being like, this should be its own book. So it was really difficult to like make it just into a chapter of like 2,500 words or something. But I really wanted to convey that like the relationship that you have with your parents and the role modeling that they do as like them being in relationships or not being in relationships. I feel like your mom was like a real role model of like, I'm tough, I can take care of myself, I'm strong, I'm proud, and you were able to kind of like emanate with that same sort of energy. And then when she started to shift a little bit, then you started to kind of shift. There's just something, there's a tether there that we have with our parents. And if we understand how they loved us, how they repaired when there was like a rupture or a fight or sadness or a little bit of trauma or whatever it is, has an incredibly huge influence on how we approach relationships. So like, yeah, like is it your parents' fault? Everything is our parents' fault. But it's up to you to figure out like what you're going to do now. How are you going to heal yourself? How are you going to take responsibility for that? Are you going to pass that on to your own kids? So it was also like that chapter was the hardest chapter to write, not just because like I wanted to stuff a whole book inside of it, but I have my own issues with my parents that I'm continually trying to work out and heal or understand how it's affecting my romantic relationships. I was also, when I sat down to go ahead and like start to write the book, I had just, like my relationship with Stacy had just ended. So there was a bunch of grief that I was also going through. So I was like feeling a lot of grief. I had to write the first chapter about my parents that I have a lot of grief about. And it was so the first chapter was like, it took 3 to 4 months just to get it out there. All the other chapters after that took a week each. So there was like so much excavating that happened. And there was a lot of like, I think that me and Kate, worked the most together in that first chapter because she was just like trying to help me through it and form it, and she was sort of playing therapist in a certain way. So after we got through the first chapter, the second chapter was so much fun because then I'm still blaming everybody, but I'm blaming society. Like I'm blaming reality TV and Hollywood and capitalism and all the stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's so surprising to hear that you say it took you so long, because I think what's special about this book is there's so much levity in it. You know, it doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like it was tough. What was the intention of adding that fun and those jokes and that levity?
Yeah, I mean, through like a lot of my TikToks, they have the levity. I'm trying to be kind of jokey or fun, which is a tricky thing to pull off sometimes with like such heavy content. But I think that's one of the main reasons I got a lot of people to follow me and enjoy my content. So it was really important to make sure that there was levity throughout the entire book. And like dating and relationships are weird, awkward, silly, and if you can't laugh at yourself, if you can't have levity in the middle of like really in seriousness or an argument or something, then it's even more challenging. And there's always like this, I have a sister, and we're always in like competition. I think maybe I'm in competition with her. Maybe she's not so much with me. But there's a competition of like who's funnier, and I win because I wrote this book and it's fucking hilarious.
I love
so
it.
I feel really good about that. Yeah.
Success.
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 Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So with the TikToks, do you ever feel like, do you have plans to continue to write more books? Do you feel like the persona or the TikToks itself, especially since you're talking about a very specific topic, do you feel as though sometimes it gets repetitive? And then, like, how do you always find new inspiration of being able to expound a little bit more?
That's gotten tougher as like the TikToks have gone on. I think like the first year it was a lot of fun. It felt really creative. Me and Stacy had just finished all 40 seasons of Survivor. Have you gone on that journey?
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, I am such a huge Survivor fan.
Okay.
If there's any way that I might actually camp, it's if I was on that show.
Okay.
I would camp maybe for the chance to win $1 million.
Okay.
So like after consuming all that content, Survivor content, I just wanted to create content. And so I started creating all the TikToks and then eventually Instagrams. And it just flowed and it was really sweet. And it felt like it was happening in the middle of a pandemic where everyone was like really thirsty for all this like mental health content. There was this other interesting thing where like, I was sort of accidentally riding the wave of big therapy. So big therapy, like the Talk Spaces or the BetterHelps, if you remember, they had like so much marketing on all the podcasts. You could not hear about BetterHelp. And their campaign was to destigmatize therapy, to make it like cool to go to therapy, because they were just like, ooh, we figured out how to make money off of mental health. And so we're going to create a campaign to make it cool or okay. So here's cool Michael Phelps, or here's Ariana Grande going to therapy, whatever. And because of that, it made it so that me and other mental health creators were able to like actually like reach a lot more people, because now it's a green flag that you're saying that you're in therapy on your dating profile. Fuck big therapy. I can't stand big therapy and all those therapy apps. But they did sort of like open up this avenue. And then in the second year, when I decided to like monetize the Therapy Jeff content, it stopped becoming fun and it became a job, and I started to resent it, like we resent all of our jobs. But I had like built this really great community that I really loved, and a lot of people got a lot out of it. So I was just like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do it. I started to like, there was like some Therapy Jeff like haters. Can you imagine? And I got
with the territory.
Yeah, I got like weirdly obsessed with trying to like find all of like what the haters are saying about me, which is I do not recommend.
Okay.
But I was like scouring the internet for all the bad things that people were saying about me, and then it started. I like had like insecurities that I never knew I was going to have. And that took a real toll. So then I was like, I've never had to like manage my mental health as much in my whole life compared to these last 3 years, just being online. And I have like every single unearned privilege a person can get, yet like I was just like, this is so hard and so difficult. So then I decided to just sort of like make it into someone of like, I'm just going to try to like survive as much as I can, make as much money as I can, and go as hard as I can. I was really enjoying this book. So then the impetus was just like, I'm going to keep on creating Therapy Jeff content because I'm loving the book that I'm writing, and it's my favorite piece of art that I've ever made. And so now the book has come out. It's really exciting, but I can like feel myself being like, like I need a break. I need a vacation. I'm feeling really burnt out. So I'm like very interested and curious to see what the next chapter is going to be for Therapy Jeff and all the content. Because it's like the first time I was just like, I'm not quite sure what kind of content is coming next.
And do you still have clients?
I do, and it's so weird for them. Because I've been a therapist for 20 years. And I have like, when you're a therapist for 20 years, you like have a big client base that comes in, leaves and comes back and does their thing. And I like went viral on like a Wednesday or a Thursday. And then like when I saw my clients on Monday and Tuesday is when I see my clients, I had like popped up in their screens in between our sessions. And I didn't even have a chance to warn them that I'm a viral sensation. I mean, I think they knew that I had it in me, like they got a little taste. But that was like such an awkward conversation to be like, it's one thing to be like, oh, you saw me at the grocery store. That was weird.
Yeah.
But then for me to like pop up on their phones in like a really weird kind of intimate way, I had to process that with all of them. And I'm not like the Therapy Jeff character is not Jeff Guenther LPC. Like I'm not talking to my clients and being like, here's the top 10 reasons you need to break up with your boyfriend. You should fire that therapist if that's what your therapist is saying in session. So it was just like, who is this? What's going on? Every now and then they'd be like, what would Therapy Jeff say? I'm like, I don't want to know what Therapy Jeff would say to this. So then I had to start like warning them, being like, you might see me online. If you do, let me know. Don't comment, because then it sort of breaks confidentiality. But I have not accepted a new client since becoming Therapy Jeff, because I've gotten thousands of people that have been wanting to see me as a client. But there's that like parasocial relationship that I don't know what to do with as a therapist, and I don't want to figure it out quite yet. So
The parasocial of it all. That didn't scare you with starting to date?
Well, that was part of the problem. When I was on Hinge and Bumble and I'd go out on a date, like 95% of the time they knew like who I was.
Yeah.
And it made the date weird because there was this sort of like fangirling a little bit that would go on, or they already had a relationship with me and I didn't know anything about them. So
Because they like that. They're attracted to the idea of who they think you are.
And so they put me up on this pedestal of like, he must be the most amazing person
Correct.
to date, which I am. But I also have flaws and imperfections, and then I fall from grace when I show them a flaw or an imperfection. They're such cute flaws and imperfections. They're very endearing, right,
Okay.
Amy? But so that's funky.
Interesting, yeah. And I asked about that because I feel like that's what I experienced.
Good luck with that.
You know,
Yeah.
it's tough.
It's weird.
It is very weird.
But you can you can go on Raya. Have you used the Raya dating app? I tried to get on Raya and they're like, we were gonna have you on a waiting. They did not accept me.
Oh, dang! You should have told me. I could have given you a referral.
I was looking for one. Yeah.
Okay, you ain't missing nothing much.
There's nothing going on there.
Yeah.
No?
Who do y'all know what Raya is? Okay, so Raya is basically like a dating app for like high-profile people. That's the way that but you have you can't just sign up for it. You have to be referred. You have to get 2 recommendation letters. It's this whole thing. But I think that's the problem with it. It feels, in my opinion, is very elitist. That's the way it feels very classist. Like you get on there and then sometimes you get to somebody, you be like, you know you don't belong here. You know what I mean? Or something like that. But I think I think that's the problem with the apps is that each of them start to feel like they have their own standards. And some are for instance, Hinge, right? I want to know why when I go to Hinge, you talk about paying for it, right? So there's the standout section, right? And it'll have certain people and then you got to give a rose, but you got to pay for the rose. Yeah. I want to know why the people in the standout don't look like the regular feed. And I want to know what is the criteria as to how you putting them in the standout.
Because they know, they have every single piece of data on who is the most desired.
Yeah, I think that's what they go off of how many people ooh, you came early, Chad. Okay, you scared me. Okay, they warned us, but I was like, it ain't 7:45 yet, but I heard some steps, Chad. Okay.
So they know who's the most desired.
Yes.
And they put them behind the what they say, what we call is rose jail, where you can't get to them unless you pay. And all these highly desired people that are stuck in rose jail, they're having an even worse time.
Yeah.
Because people can't contact them.
Yeah.
Right?
That makes sense.
Exactly.
Wow. So that means, because I was trying to, I wonder where they got me put. I'm going to have to find that out. Now, we got some audience questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. First question. What's your take on situationship culture? What's happening to all of us? The saddened culture of situationships doesn't feel normal.
I feel like situationships it's a very polarizing topic. And I'm 100% okay with situationships. In my day, we called them casual relationships. As long as we're all being upfront and honest with ourselves and with the person that we're situationshipping with. I think the problem is that we're not really admitting what we want, and we think that we need to be just chill, cool, whatever. I'm gonna look for a situationship and not get too committed, which is totally fine as long as you're being honest with yourself. But a lot of times, I don't think we are. So there's and I think that there's some people out there that's oh, there's so many situationships available, so I don't have to actually grow into somebody that's going to be a really good partner and do the hard work of making a relationship stick, because I can just kind of dip in and out of situationships if I want. So go for it, but be honest. But it is I feel stunting some people from actually growing.
So you're pro situationship?
I'm pro all relationship as long as you're all enthusiastically consenting and being honest with what you're looking for. Are you not? I feel like you're giving me a vibe that you're not. You're not.
I've been in many of those, and to me, my response to that is go to therapy. Because to me, that it feels more like you have commitment issues or you have unhealed trauma that you haven't dealt with, so you're looking for like a quick fix.
You could very well, that could be the reason. If that's the case, then I want you to like go on a healing journey and figure out how you can work through that. The problem is I don't think people are like admitting to themselves that they have healing that they need to do. Yeah, and so they're like using the situationships to just sort of get a little bit of their needs met. Yeah.
We need to get to the core of things.
We do.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
You can skip this question.
No, I like the question. It's okay. What if I like everything besides his penis? That's a good question.
How much do you value his penis? Is the question. Like, how much do you value sex? How important is it to you? If you're like a size queen, if a penis is like incredibly important to you, then it could be a deal breaker. But you know, there are a lot more things to a relationship other than penises and sex. But I need you to figure out like, are you not able to like step into the relationship as much as you can and really give it a shot? Whether it's like the penis or whether it's their temper or whether it's like their religious background, whatever it is. Like if there's something that's like holding you back from that person, then you need to be honest with yourself. It's tricky because like if it's the way that they navigate conflict, maybe you can grow. Maybe you can change that. With a penis, it kind of is what it is. I mean, you know, it depends on like how you use it. There's other things. It's also like it doesn't just have to be. Hold on. It doesn't just have to be like penis centered. There's like we have hands and mouth, you know, mouth stuff and hand stuff and you know what I mean.
You know who I miss, Dr. Ruth. You remember her? She was great.
She talked a lot about hand stuff and mouth
stuff.
She
did. Do you believe in sex on the first date?
Do you believe in it?
Yeah.
I do believe in sex on the first date.
Okay.
If you're both consenting people that want to do sex on the first date, then like, do sex or don't do sex, both endorsed.
I think of it as try before you buy it. It's a test run.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
For me, that's important.
It's important, but also know that like the first sex can be a little weird. And that it's not always like sex can you don't agree with this at all, but sex can like this is okay. This is like a growing, a healing experience for you. You can have like not great sex on the first date, and then it can get even better. Yeah,
that's true. But I think I can sense if there's potential, or if you just
a lot of times you can sense.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Here we go. Next question. What's the most important things to know about dating your spouse when married to stay connected and authentic?
I think that there's like when you're dating your spouse, well, there's that sort of like the always be dating thing, right? So if you're in a long-term relationship, you need to continue to be like date nights, adding spicy things, creating novelty. I said this earlier today at a other talk where there's like, it's maybe not the worst idea to go ahead and watch all the reality dating shows like The Bachelor and all this stuff and like really pay attention to what the producers do to make all these contestants fall in love.
Correct.
Because they create dopamine hits, they create the adrenaline pumping. They're just within proximity of each other. It feels like the stakes are really high. You should do something like that, those sorts of those vibes in whatever way that you want in your relationship in order to like have it continue being like, you know, good chemistry and make it real spicy. So Bachelor, Bachelorette, cave diving, bungee jumping, or it could just be like kind of getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. It doesn't have to be really extreme. And understand that like as we're in relationships, we're still growing as people. And I think it was like Esther Perel, who's a therapist legend, who says like, on average, we typically have like 3 really important romantic relationships in our lives. And oftentimes it's with the same person because like that relationship continues to evolve and grow and you continue to meet that person in a really authentic way.
Nice. Do you enjoy the dating shows?
I love the dating shows.
Okay. And why do you love them? I
like the drama. I like the I love the dating shows, but there's also like every now and then I'll like interview somebody who's been on a dating show and they tell me about the trauma that they go through and how they usually come out feeling worse than when they first went in. So I try to not think about that as I'm enjoying the show that I'm watching. But it does feel like some weird, sick kind of social experiment that like they know how to produce a dating show, and I enjoy it.
They do. Okay, next question. What are 3 questions to know if you are in love, or in lust?
I don't think that there's like, I think it's just one question, and I feel like it's a question that you're not going to really feel satisfied with. The question is just like, what does your gut say? What does your intuition say? I think that you already know. And I think that you're farming this question out to me or somebody else or your friends because you're not like, I love you, whoever you are, but I think maybe you're not like as like courageous as you need to be in order to like answer that question honestly. So I get that question a lot, and I'm usually just like, what do you think? What do you think the answer is? And I'm such a fucking therapist, like where I'm just like not answering your question, and it's so incredibly annoying. But I'm a therapist, so sue me.
Yeah. Do people recognize you on the street, and what's your favorite fan encounter?
They do recognize me on the street, and I love when they recognize me on the street. There's my favorite like celebrity rock star that I ever recognized on the street was Mark Hoppus from the greatest band in America, Blink-182. And I went up to him when I was 18 years old and I said, "You are Mark Hoppus from Blink-182." And he said, "That's right." And he was there with his girlfriend. He introduced me to his girlfriend. He's like, "I just made a new video for All the Small Things. Keep an eye out on MTV. It's premiering tomorrow. I think you're going to like it a lot. What's your name?" And he said, "Thanks for saying hi." And that's how I interact with every single fan.
Great.
Where I'm just like very pleased to meet them. But my favorite interaction is when I typically go to concerts on my own when they're like really special concerts. And so I saw Third Eye Blind, which is a very special band, and I just wanted to be me and Third Eye Blind there. I didn't want anyone to go with me.
I get that.
Yeah, and so it was just me and Stephen Jenkins, the lead singer, and I was like sitting there in between bands, and they were setting up, and there was these 2 friends that sat right in front of me on the lawn, and the young woman turned around, and she saw me, and she started like crawling towards me. And then she just like embraced me and hugged me. And we just didn't say anything, and we just hugged, and it was very sweet, and I understood what was going on. And then she backs up, and I was like, "What's up?" She's like, "You're therapy, Jeff." And I was like, "I am." And she was like, "I live in LA. I've been watching all your videos forever. I've been in this relationship that I've been really on the fence with, and I didn't know if I should break up with him, and I like didn't have enough strength to break up with him, and then I saw one of your videos on how to break up, and then I just did it, and I felt horrible, and I didn't know if it was the right decision to do, and I was just looking for a sign, and my friend was like, "We got to get out of LA," and so they just drove north. They went to Portland. They saw Third Eye Blind was playing, and they went to the show, and they sat down. She turned around. It was Therapy Jeff, and she's like, "This is a sign. This is a sign that it was the right thing to do." And I was like, "This was a sign. You're so brave."
Look at that.
Yeah. And then we watched the concert together, and it was very sweet.
Together?
Yeah.
Aw.
And that was my favorite fan interaction I've ever had.
I love that. That's beautiful. Wow. Do you ever condone rekindling with an ex? Tell the truth.
I mean, you gotta wait a while, I think. Like, make it so that you're not like feeling grief for them. Make it so that you're not feeling desperate for them. Really, like, see if you can kind of like get over them. And then if you all feel like maybe there's something left, then shoot your shot. There's something like really fun about rekindling with an ex. It's sort of like one of those life experiences that like that are like on bucket lists. I think like you should have. It probably won't work out. It's probably not going to work out. It's a bad decision, really, when it comes down to it. But like, fuck it, do it.
Do you believe in right person, wrong time?
I go back and forth on this because sometimes I'm just like, if it's the right person, then there is no wrong time, and it's just gonna Okay.
But I mean, but to be fair, the relationship you in now took a while to get there.
Yeah, until it was the right time.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So there was, okay, good point. Yeah. There was, it was the wrong time for a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, even though I think that like, if it's the right person, it doesn't matter what the time is, I still think like timing is everything when it comes down to it. So it really depends on what day you're asking me that question.
Okay, good to know. I will circle back next week.
Okay.
Last question. What does Therapy Jeff do for his own self-care?
Yeah, I'm trying to like figure out what that's going to be because I need to take like a little bit of a break. But I have a really sweet, loving community. I usually spend time with friends. I spend time with my girlfriend, who's just such a sweetie, and she like in that relationship recharges me. I play video games, but only video games that have Mario in it.
Okay.
Mario Odyssey.
Love that.
Mario Kart.
Yes, Mario Sunshine.
Mario Sunshine. Oh yeah, classic.
That's a good one.
I go for walks. I listen to lots of music. I listen to a podcast. I go to shows. I like to see comedy and music. I also go to therapy, and that's like incredibly healing and helps me out a lot.
Beautiful. Well, I just want to say one more time, congratulations on your first book. Let's give that a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. This has absolutely been a pleasure. Absolutely make sure that if you haven't gotten the book, you get it ASAP. Thank you all for being here tonight. Please get home safely. Toodaloo.